भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। All of you, settle down, sit comfortable. No, I can't reach. All of you settle down. A few minutes to collect our thoughts. Take deep breaths, if that helps. Picture the mind as a calm lake that's stretched endlessly in front of you. The thoughts come and go as ripples on the surface. Stay still and allow the ripples of thoughts to drift for a while. Make no effort to stop the ripples. Breathe steadily and rhythmically with the ripple motion. Hold fast to the idea that I am the witness. The effulgence and the light, the remover of darkness. Identify yourself with the light. Allow the mind to rest. Let peace prevail henceforth. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are well poised to study the second chapter of the first canto. In the first chapter, the discussion ended with Nachiketa replying to Yama. And what was the reply he gave? In spite of Nachiketa being lured by so many gifts and allurements, he, in spite of being a young kid, so to say, 7-8-year-old kid, who doesn't understand the gifts of life, who doesn't appreciate even the idea of enjoyments, who does not have the experience of any of these, was still not troubled by all the gifts that was given, but that should have been ordinary, correct? If you're not attracted, naturally you will not be lured by that. Why will you be lured by something of which you don't even know what the consequences are? It's like trying to make a kid laugh at a humor. Humor requires some maturity to understand. If that maturity is not there, you can't enjoy the humor. So likewise, how can a kid of 7 or 8 year old be lured by gifts of high order, like thousands of years of life and huge kingdoms, and then all kinds of enjoyments, starting from food, good life, and then sovereignty, and then wonderful children, and a beautiful wife, and with no competitors. These things don't lure a child because the child doesn't understand. Simple. But then Nachiketa's refusal of this was on a different plane altogether. He said that I don't want these things, not because I understand these joys, but all of them, even if they are going to give a very high kind of a joy, they are all short lived. They are all short lived. Shvobhava, that's the word Nachiketa uses. Shvobhava means, Shvaha means tomorrow. That which has life only till tomorrow. The entire long future, he just condensed into one word called tomorrow. He says that it's going to live for just tomorrow. And at the due course of time, you yourself are going to snatch away all the gifts that you are giving now. There is no eternity in all the gifts that you are giving me. So what's the point in holding on to this? When I have my third bone, which will give me eternal wisdom, a knowledge, a wisdom that will be once and for all with me, and nobody can snatch that knowledge from me. So that is the position which Nachiketa exercised in his dialogue with Yama. Actually a very important point to note, that it is not necessary. That's a kind of a value education he has undergone through the study of scriptures, through the study of his devoted approach to life and to his master. With all the devotion, he acquired this wisdom of how to inquire into knowledge unperturbed, undisturbed. Shobhava Matyasya Yadantagaitas. Then he says, Sarvendriyanam Jarayanti Tejaha. All the enjoyments that you are given, they all will wane away when my own indriyas, the senses, they get weakened. Abhisarvam Jeevitam Alpameva. All the things that the life, that life you are giving, they all get ridiculed in front of the boon which I am asking, the answers to the boon that I am asking. Tavaivavaha Travanritya Gite. It requires a tremendous amount of courage to tell that you keep all those gifts with you. I don't want any of them, but I want the answer to my third question. What is the third question? Third question, Deve Ratrapi Vichikitsana. Even the gods are confused with regards to the, the life after death, whether it is there or not, and so on. What happens to that? What happens to the soul, departed soul? So then Yama begins his address to Nachiketa. Anyat Shreyaha, Anyadutaiva Preyaha, Te Ube Nanarthe Purusham Sinitaha, Tayoho Shreya Adadanasya Sadhu Bhavati, Hiyate Artha Adya U Preyo Vrinite. Straightforward meaning, one is good while another is pleasant. Ubhe, these two, nanarthe, they serve different ends. Purusham sinitaha. Sinitaha means is binding. Purusham, the man, he gets bound by these two. What are these two? Shreyaha and Preyaha. Actually, the language, Sanskrit language is biased in this sense. In English, the word good and the word which is pleasant, these two are quite synonymous even. But in Sanskrit, the respective Sanskrit terms are diagonally opposite. Shreyaha means it is what is the best that you can aim for. It's not just being good, it's what is the best that you can aim for. Shreyaha, Shreshtaha. From that comes Shreyaha. Now, Preyaha is that which is pleasing, pleasing to your mind, pleasing to your senses, pleasing to your body, but can it be sustained? Pleasing things are all welcome, but can it be sustained? That's a question which is going to be further elaborated. Tayoho shreya adadanasya sadhu bhavati. Adadanasya means choosing. Of these two, shreya and preya, choosing shreya, by choosing shreya, the person becomes a sadhu. Sadhu means what? Sadhu actually means good or well, nice, appropriate, proper, befitting. All these meanings are there for the term sadhu, and it is it is typically used for a person with good qualities, with good mindedness. What does good here mean? Good here means a person who is wedded to dharma. Dharma are the prescriptions of the holy texts with regards to one's ashrama and according to one's varna also. Varna and ashrama dharma. My station of life. A child should behave like a child. He should not behave like an old man. An old man also, I mean rather a matured guy, should behave like a matured guy, not childish. Correct? That ashrama is there. Four different ashramas. So a person he has to behave according to the ashrama. For instance, what will be a grihastha ashrama dharma? The grihastha ashrama dharma now, see, most of the foreign countries, they are facing this serious problem. What is the problem? Aging population. That's right. Now grihasthas are coming down. They are now becoming vanaprasthas. Vanaprastha is the phase of life when we enjoy a little bit of luxury and we withdraw ourselves from the hustle and bustle of life. Now, when can that be sustainable? When the vanaprastha ashrama is taken by the brahmacharis. So the brahmacharis have to, there must be sufficient brahmacharis. Youth should be there. Youth population should be there. Now there is a serious problem. Now, if the respective dharmas are followed, then we will not have this problem. At a time when a particular phase of life has to be underwent, it has to be properly underwent. Now, for that, dharma gives a well delineated code of action. Do this, do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Now, a wise man, what he does is, he picks these threads. He picks these threads and forms a life out of it. Say, for instance, I'll give you one small example. In the brahmacharya avastha, you will find the student. He is being left in the house of a teacher. Now the father doesn't doubt the teacher's role in this, because dharma says that in the presence of the teacher, households of the teacher, the student will undergo a wholesome education. Perfect. So now, if that is the dharmic prescription, now if the father comes and says, Acha, this man is taking my child, what if he does human trafficking with him? That has now come to happen. Now there is a lack of trust. The entire edict, the entire edict of a social structure has underwent a kind of a damaging changes that we are unable to follow our own dharma. So now this parent, he mindlessly, I don't want to say mindlessly, he in fact without any second thought, not thoughtlessly, without any second thought, he has the first thought that when my child reaches the house of the preceptor, he will get the knowledge. And the training also accrues to the same effect. The preceptor is able to give the training to the child. Now, if the child had to be, say, trained at home only, will he get the experience of learning from the preceptor? Certainly not. And living in the house of the preceptor gives him a world of experience. First of all, at such a tender age, he learns to be away from his home. And then in a very calculated and a very laboratory setup home, where there are elderly preceptors and their respective family members, namely his wife or maybe his own son. So they are taking care of this child, not only one, but a school of them. And then they give them practical training. They are supposed to clean the house, they are supposed to prepare all the ingredients for the daily work, for the daily rituals. Correct? He may be a carpenter. So the carpenter, he has to follow the carpentry in the carpenter style of doing, not in the one's own. But if the same child will be at home, imagine the amount of interference he will have to face by the two different circumstances, one presented at home and another one presented in the office or the school, at the college, at the portals of learning. So this dichotomy will be there in his approach. So in order to give him a thorough, one-pointed, concentrated learning, the parents are happy giving away the child at the house of the preceptor. That was once upon a time the way. And oftentimes you will see that is practiced even now. Musician teachers, they literally take the child to their house. Practically the child lives in the musician's house. And you take the traditional schools where they teach shastras. They're all Guru Grihavasa. You see the Veda Patha Shalas. The child comes there, stays there for 6 months. It's not a kind of a, currently we do have hostels. Yeah, hostels is also some kind of a, yeah, a kind of a revamped setup of the old Gurukula Vasa. But not under the direct inspection of the master. But in the Patashalas, they are directly under the inspection of the masters. There will be 3 to 4 teachers, and different groups will be under each of those teachers. The teacher plays with the student, they eat with the student, they together cook the food, they together clean the place. Kind of the social fabric is so well knit, and the guy comes back, welcome. So why I'm trying to say here is that sadhu is goodness. So how do we enrich ourselves with goodness? Only based on the prescriptions of the dharma. That is the varna and ashrama dharma. So it's very easy to say, well, should a barber's child be a barber? Well, should a carpenter's child be a carpenter? Now think otherwise. A doctor who day in and day out is dealing with patients, and he has the full knowledge of the subject of medicine and treatment and so on. And now he is in a better position to transfer that knowledge to his child, right? And then he would be, not only that he has in his mind, he would be discussing in his households, surgeons will be visiting home, doctors, paramedics, nurses, they will be visiting his home, he will be giving them instructions, and day in and day out, the child listens to all these vocabulary. He gets all this vocabulary for no cost. And now if this guy will set himself to study the branch of medicine, certainly he will be miles ahead than the guys who hails from a carpenter's house. Right? So it says Varna simply says that whatever your family tradition is, hold on to that family tradition, because you would be the best in that. In that particular art form of life, there will be no one who will be able to compete with you. A fisherman is not to become a baker, but a fisherman is to become a better fisherman. A farmer is to become a farmer, a better farmer. That's what our Shastra tells. It's not that he should be bound and he should enshroud himself in that particular lifestyle. It's just that he can master that art and then skillfully perform the same art. He can improvise upon the knowledge that he has bequeathed from his seniors. And then he becomes a better person in that particular field. So Swami Vivekananda was also, each is great is in own place. He doesn't have to appropriate the place of another. Why there is so much of disparity in the society is because each one is trying to appropriate the place of another, wants to depose, wants to dispose, want to substitute, and want to be. It's not, see, there are two different notions. One is competency, and second thing is competition. It is good to be competent, but it is not good to be competitive. The competition is something which is actually very destructive. It actually kills creativity in your own. So a farmer, if he wants to be competitive with his fisherman brother, He doesn't have to give up farming and then do. You increase your competency in being a farmer. So we have to aim for competency and not for competitiveness. Though the world is actually trying to expect you to have the mix of the both. But I tell you, true competency will have no competitors. So sadhu, the good, sadhutvam is the goodness, and dharma teaches what are those good strands and the threads that we need to acquire for ourselves so that our life is better, we can make this world better, we can make others' life also better. Sadhu bhavati, hiyate arthadyahu preyo vrinite. But a person who, instead of choosing Shreya, often choose to something which is pleasant and pleasing, what happens to him? What becomes of him? He says he gets actually completely diverted from the true end of life. Well, there are a lot of mysteries in this particular verse. It says, hiyate. Hiyate here means he loses track. He loses track. Arthat. Artha means here the meaning, the fruit, the benefit that we get. Purushartha, they say, na? There are types of 4 Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and then the 4th one, Moksha. It is not that the 4th is last, is last but not the least in Solvang. They say, na? It's last but not the least. So it actually means in whichever stage of your process of acquisition, stage of acquisition you are, eventually you will have to touch upon moksha. No one is, Vivekananda says, even planets evolving towards that unity. Even planets evolve. Unconscious, involuntary, jada vastus, they also have got an evolutionary cycle. You can easily contrast it with the modern findings. Namely, there is something which is totally energy in its inception, and then suddenly there is a projection, and then finally there is again a dissolution back to what? The only monopole singularity that we can imagine is back to energy forms. From the energy everything came up, and back to energy everything will get absorbed. So we find that the evolution is going back, tracing back oneself to the source. And it is a $1 billion question, where has all these things come from? Where has all the material come from? And more importantly, being human beings, we should be rather be less concerned from where the creation came from and be more concerned with where do we have come from. Where did all these life processes begin? From what did it begin with? So that's the true end. Artha here is that true end. Hiyate means he gets divested, he gets diverted and distracted. Person who seeks pleasure. See, oftentimes you can understand, because all of you are knowledge seekers. After watching 3 hours of movie, how do you feel yourself? Extremely creative or tired? Exhausted? And you feel like recouping yourself, right? Okay, अच्छा ठीक है, हम अभी काम में लगाएंगे अपने को. We try to recoup ourselves from a very distracted set of very kind of in an entertaining mind. What happens, see, all the stress they get released, they say, and all of them can be equated with some amount of body chemistry. You eat something, body chemistry changes. You watch something, body chemistry changes. And naturally, it leads to change in the brain processes, and we also have a fancy name, mind. So mentally, we feel happy, or we feel elated, or we feel relaxed. But then we feel that we are now in a position to take up our next task of either learning or venture. We think that we are ready to do that. But what we forget here is that mode of recreation, that the luxury that we have given ourselves to, is that the right form of entertainment? Is that the right form of luxury? Or did we overdo it? How do we know that we have not overdone it? You can clearly understand by the state of the mind after the recreation. Is your mind creative enough start from where you left, or are you now searching for the loosened threads to connect and then start your search again? I don't know about others, but every time I have given myself the luxury of entertainment, I found myself wanting for the loosened threads to recoup myself. I've never been successfully creative after recreation. But on the other hand, there are umpteen occasions. When after a kind of very involved exhaustingly intellectual work, I have truly found myself to be creative. If suddenly a new thought comes, a new approach suddenly flashes, but only under that tension of that intellectual occupation. When I find I'm able to open the lid. This may be purely subjective in its nature, but I find that often people, if they find joy in recreation and entertainment, but always you have to inquire within what is the state of the mind subsequent to the entertainment. So that way we can keep a check on the ways that we entertain ourselves. People say that even your entertainment should be edifying, should be elating yourself. It should not downgrade your existence. For instance, people take music. So music is a wonderful form of an entertainment, true, and it lulls the mind, as well as it's able to temper your spirit and also able to nurture your bit of creativity and intelligence. But then people also can overdo this. They say that music, yeah, rock music is really fine for me. You rock yourself, and then subsequently we find we get exhausted out of it. Well, that again is left to the choice of body chemistry. Some people will get not only joy, but they get inspiration out of rock music. It's okay, but we have to find our own basic ways of how we have to entertain ourselves. So the pleasing thing is there is no commonality in describing what is pleasing. It's just that one have to be wise enough to choose what is best for one's own. So Shreya evala kevalam adudanasya upadanam kurvatah sadhu shobhanam shivam bhavati. Aha, this one is no. What happened to this? No, the text, why did it get cut? Okay, so next one says Shreya. So there are two, Shreya and Preya. Shreya will be chosen by those who are sadhu, and Preya will be chosen by those who lose the sight of the end. This is Yama's proclamation, okay? And we will try to see how he delineates further about Shreya and Preya. Shreyascha Preyascha Manushya Metas Tau Samparitya Vivinakti Dhiraha Shreyo hi Dhiro bi Preyaso Vrinite Preyo Mando Yoga Kshemat Vrinite. So the good, which is Shreya, and the Preya pleasant, they Manushyam Etaha. Etaha means it attains, it reaches. Tau Etaha. These two, they attain, they present themselves as, see, they here, nobody is excluded. Every human being faces opportunities, challenges, and then it's up to him how he entreats it further. So the Shreya and Preya, they come as opportunities in front of him. And then Dhiraha, the man who is courageous. Okay, the Shastra uses the term Dhiraha. What he does is, Samparitya, he examines the opportunities that presents itself, he examines, and then he separates them. He is able to, Vivinakti means he is able to discriminate. And then separate. Samparitya means he is able to do an unbiased estimation. What is the difference between a person with a high IQ and a person with high EQ? A person with a high EQ is every time he puts his first intelligence and then tries to analyze. A person with a high EQ tries to personalize the thing and then tries to feel, not think, but feel. He uses feeling as the major vehicle for all his actions. And IQ is a person, he uses thinking as the. So here he says, the Dhiraha here is a person who puts the horse in front of the cart. He says, if I'm going to open my emotions to everything, I'll be beaten by the world. The way emotions are something which take the mind in the crest and troughs of waves. And we know we don't have any control on the tide. We just have no control on it. Otherwise, why do you think that a person who is angry loses his sanity? They call it momentary insanity. Because of emotions. So emotions are something which cannot be controlled. So that's the reason why emotion needs to be guarded. And it has to be invested, not divested. And invested on things that will fetch you the maximum returns. Not simply should die away, to lose. So the IQ is actually sufficiently is necessary in order to grow on the EQ part. So here Samparitya and Vivinakti makes the person dhira. Here the courage is where he is able to put the intellect in front. That means what? He is able to he is able to carry out an objective investigation, which is what all the scientists do. What is the difference between a scientist and a person of the other cadre? The person in the scientist, he never believes unless there is a proof for it. He doesn't take anything unless there is a proof for it. So, in fact, when I was pursuing my career, I asked my guide, sir, I wish you give me some problems to ponder about. I mean, there are a lot of things moving in my mind. So some suggestions you can throw. And he said, "Acha, theek hai, since you're asking, let me tell you." And he gave one problem statement. I looked at the statement. Frankly speaking, that problem statement didn't have any prayer aspect at all. It wasn't pleasing at all. I mean, none of the problem statement, none of the aspect of the problem was very attractive. I don't think that I'll be solving the poverty crisis, or even the it wasn't a rocket science problem also. So it was very uninteresting. And then said, "Sir, by the way, does it have a solution even?" It's a first question which any student will ask, because after you try for 3 years and you don't get a solution, then the guide should not say, "Hey, you asked, I gave." But you never asked me whether there is any solution. So I wanted to get rid of that paradoxical instant of, suffering. So I told him, "Sir, does it have a solution?" He said, "Maybe, may not be. Either way, it is good for you." How is it now? See, if there is a solution, find it. If there is no solution, prove it. So either way, you stand to benefit. Why do you worry about it? It's a wonderful standpoint, So scientific investigation, neha vikraman ashosti pratyavayo na vidyata. I remember Sri Krishna's prescription in this particular context. He says that your efforts will never be waste. Will never be waste, provided you do it objectively. The moment you put your own idea, your own personality, don't weigh the problem with your personality. Oftentimes, we fail because of that. Not because of the problem is tough to crack, but it's just that the personality has got very inextricably connected with the problem. And that will weigh over upon the complexity of the problem. So we miss the bus. So he said, yeah, you do it. Of course, scientists, they do it, they come to know about it, and then they become very proficient in it. They have a very clear objective, but they learn over a period of time. It's just that a student often loses sight of this. There were quite a few students who were very sullen, sunken, and then, "Are kichu holo na?" I don't know. He said, "Amar kichu holo na." No, not that nothing has happened to you. That the problem is not solved. You are as what you are. It's just that the problem is not solved. It's just that you have to put yourself, and in due course of time, everyone saw through those tough times. So here, Shreya Preya Manushametau Sampariti, that Samparikshanam and Vivinaktam, the discrimination and analysis. This is an intellectual activity, and we have to do that before we take it upon ourselves. Shreyo hi dhiraha abhipreyaso vrinite, preyo mando yoga kshematu vrinite. So there's just this corollary part of it. He says that the wise will choose what is good, while the man who is ignorant, he chooses the pleasant for the sake of the body. But then, Acharya Shankara makes a very poignant question here. He says, well, it's all good to say that there are Shreya and Preya, but if you see, majority, Bahulyena, majority, Loka, Arthameva, Preya eva adatte. Adatte means they want, they seek. आदत बन गया बोल रहे हैं ना हिंदी में, हैबिट बन गया ना, परंतु हियर आदत मीन्स सीकिंग. ठीक है. सो प्रेय, why is it that everyone is seeking only prayers, that which is pleasing, but not which serves the eternal good? Still, eternal good has not been described. Okay, but here he is going to come slowly. Why is it not? Then he says, Vivinakti diraha preyo mando yogakshemat vrinite. But let us keep this question alive. So sadhanataha falataha mandabuddhina durviveka rupeha vyamishri bhute. Now the person who seeks pleasure, what he does is he has a subjective view of life, experience. Yes or no? A man who seeks pleasure will have